Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome back from the break. My name is Jennifer Porto, and I will be your moderator for this plenary table about the green transformation. We just heard the title. It is Driving Innovation, Renewables and Sustainable Chemistry. I hope everyone had a really, really great break and is ready for this very exciting discussion. I'm so thrilled to be here with this very high-level panel, and I want to get right to introducing our panelists today. First off, the Helmholtz-Zentrum Berlin's scientific director, Bernd Recht. Please join me on stage. Let's give him a round of applause, ladies and gentlemen. He is also a professor in the photovoltaics department of the Faculty of Electrical Engineering and Computer Science at the Technische Universität in Berlin. You are also the co-initiator of the Energy Materials in Situ Laboratory Emil at the Berlin storage ring BESSY 2, which is an incredible facility. Next up is BASF's Senior Vice President for Analytical and Material Science, Carla Seidel. Let's give her a round of applause. She is a member of the board of the German Chemical Society, GDCH, and of the Strategic Advisory Board Energy for the Helmholtz Society. You also hold a PhD in analytical chemistry from the University of Hannover. Thank you so much for joining us today. Next up is Siemens Energy's Executive Vice President, Global Functions, Juha Pankakowski. Please join me on stage.
Thank you.
Juha is responsible for areas including IT, procurement, innovation, and project execution. You have extensive experience in international business and management, particularly in digital transformation, business processes, harmonization, and technological development. Thank you so much for joining us today. And last but not least, Chile's ambassador to Germany, Her Excellency Magdalena Atria. Please join me on stage. Thank you. Ambassador, you are a lawyer by profession, and you studied at the Law School of the University of Chile. Yes. You were named ambassador to Germany in 2022, and until recently, you headed the legal department of the National Foreign Investment Promotion Agency, Invest Chile.
Yep.
So, welcome. Now we're here all at the table together. Thank you so much for joining me today. Over the course of the next 50 minutes, we want to take a look at our title, Driving Innovation, Renewables, and Sustainable Chemistry. Now, earlier this morning, right here, Falling Walls chairman of the board, Jürgen Milneck, opened up today's circle session by asking, how can science, research, and innovation shape the future? The future of Europe, the future of the world. Now, I'm not a scientist. So when I look at a topic like this one, driving innovation, renewables, and sustainable chemistry, I have to think about what that means. So when we talk about chemistry, as in the chemical sector or the chemical industry, we're talking about things, chemicals, that convert raw materials into other things, like plastics, polymers, fertilizers, synthetic fibers, pharmaceuticals, vitamins, all sorts of things. Now, in terms of the energy transition, the chemical industry accounts for about 10% of the world's global power demand. And in addition, some chemical processes release CO2 as a byproduct, which means there's no real way to completely decarbonize them. The chemical industry faces immense pressure to drastically reduce emissions by sourcing vast amounts of renewable energy and feedstocks, all while meeting growing demand. This necessary yet challenging transformation presents new opportunities for innovation. And that's what we want to talk about today with the four of you. So after the discussion here at the circle, we're going to open up to questions from the audience. So if you want to have something in about 30 minutes, raise your hand. But I want to come back to sort of the theme of today's session, the green transformation. Bernd Recht, I'd like to start with you. In your opinion, what is the biggest challenge when it comes to driving innovation in the green transformation?
Maybe I start with a very general view on it and look a bit, if you look on our planet, especially in these times, we have to be first aware that it's one planet for us all. And if you talk about renewables and the transformation, it's quite clear that there's a boom in renewable energies, that it's growing strongly, that things are possible, costs are going down with solar, with wind, with hydro. So there's a lot of electricity available, but sometimes at the wrong time or widely distributed. But it's plenty of energy, and this is where chemistry comes in, which plays a key role, is that we get the chemicals, that we get fuels based on renewable energy sources, but also we need feedstock materials. So if we don't rely on fossil resources, we need new carbon sources, we need catalyzers to develop to get green hydrogen, green fuels, but also what you talked at the beginning, all those polymers, all those kind of materials we need in our daily life. And this is a really huge transformation to come there from, and it's something what we need to do globally. And if I look on Chile, a country which is rich on sunlight, rich on wind energy, and also on resources. So many on the fundamental resources we need for batteries and other materials are, for example, in this case. So it's just one example that we need to drive the innovation together in Germany, in Europe, and across the world with our different perspectives. And maybe as a first thought.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much. Working together is something that I want to address right in the next round of questions. And I love that you already referenced your colleague across the table. And I want to say to the four of you, anytime that you want to jump in today, just give me a little sign. It's so exciting for us all when there's a real conversation that happens at the table. But for now, Carla Seidel, please. In your opinion, what is the biggest challenge when it comes to driving innovation in the green transformation?
Yeah, Ben already said that it's on the one hand a global topic. It's about the climate change. We are not talking about 2-degree plus anymore. We are more on the 3-degree pathway. And for the first time, the man-made material are more in terms of volume than the biomass. So it's really time to act now. And for the chemical industry, the green transformation is really a mega project. So it's not only about the products itself. It starts with the energy, with power and heat, and it goes up to the products itself. So it's not a single task to tackle. It's really the complex task, and even it's a challenge to describe it for people that are not so close to the topic.
Thank you so much. It is a complex problem to solve. We're going to get back to that a little bit later on in the panel, but for now, I will also reference your colleague right next door, Juha Pankakowski from Siemens Energy. What do you think is the biggest challenge when it comes to driving innovation in the green transformation?
I think it was already referred to that it's a complex problem, but it's also a large financial challenge. If we look at the overall, from a greening energy perspective, I think the latest estimates on what would be the cost of converting or doing the green transition on the energy sector, we're talking about massive numbers, and the latest ones that I've heard are in the range of $150 trillion or euros. When we talk about the energy intensive industries, for instance, in Europe, and of course, chemical industry is the one that when we look at the traditional energy sources is one of the biggest consumers, both for the feedstock, but also for the energy generation. We're talking about numbers of 500, again, billion in Europe. Of course, the European Investment Bank did their share already, if we look at last year, but the amount that we're able to invest in innovation in this particular area, for instance, through that means was 21 billion. So a sizable number, but when compared with the challenge, it shrinks in proportion. So there's quite a few things that need to be done, not just from a complexity perspective, but also from an economical perspective. If we look at the things that we have currently already as innovations in the pipeline, there's quite a few things that can help us to solve this. So, and I think more than 1/3 of the activities that we know that need to be done are already developed innovations, but they're not developed to the scale and to the magnitude. So there's quite a lot of scaling up, quite a lot of industrialization that needs to be done. And it's a question then who takes the risk in doing that?
I love that you bring scaling up into it because we're going to talk about that in just a moment. But now I would like to go to you, Ambassador Magdalena Atria. In your opinion, what is the biggest challenge when it comes to driving innovation in the green transformation?
Thank you. As Bernd said, Chile is a very lucky country at this moment in its history because we are really blessed with natural resources, a lot of radiation in northern Chile, very strong winds in southern Chile, which allows us to produce very cheap energy. And that allows us, in turn, to develop new industries such as the green hydrogen industry and derivatives, among them ammonia, which are very relevant for the industry, chemical industry, and also agricultural industry. But for that, we have to. It's an industry that's in development, and that means, as you said, that we need a lot of investment. For example, in Chile, to develop our industry, we are calculating that we need $45 billion to achieve our green hydrogen production goals, as well as the capacity of 40 gigawatts of green energy by 2030, and to build the enabling infrastructure. I mean, ports, roads, transmission lines, storage capacity, and everything else. So I think all of these factors, I mean, the investment, and to that effect, I read a couple of papers a couple of months ago, and that referred to the reform of the investment banks, because their tools are not designed for renewable energy projects or innovation or industries or institutes. And in order to be able to develop these industries, there has to be a change, whereas these projects have available and cheaper credits. I mean, at least affordable credits in order to develop these projects here in Europe or in South America or wherever. So I think investment is a key issue that we have to address in order to develop any of these industries and to achieve green transition at least by 2050.
Thank you so
Which
much.
is around the corner, by the way.
It is around the corner. Thank you so much. I saw all of you nodding along, and so Carla Zeidel, please respond.
Yeah, so to me, I just wanted to add that in the area of renewable energy, at least we have already technologies available and we are in deployment. So BASF, if you look into the 2018 numbers, we had less than 1% renewable energy in our energy mix. Now, 2013, we are already at 20%, and our goal is to achieve 60% by 2030. So for me, it's an amazing step that can be done. It's not alone. Of course, it's with partners. It's make and buy strategies. But there is at least already a momentum that we can build on.
I think when we're talking about the chemical industry in particular, I think it's good to recognize that, of course, chemical industry is a large consumer of energy, but it's also a large producer of the solutions that are required for the green transition. So I think, in a sense, it is both the part of the challenge, but also a very big part of the solution as well.
Let's go with this here, this idea of being part of the solution. And I love that we're already talking across, we have government, we have industry, we have research here. Let's talk a little bit about collaboration and between these different institutions. And I want to know, as we're working on a just transition, a sustainable transition, specifically now in terms of chemical value chains, I think we also have to talk for a moment, okay, there have been some changes in governments or what's going to happen. There's a little bit of maybe we're not sure how the next few months are going to look globally in politics, and that's okay, but we're not going to worry about that too much right now. We want to talk about things that are working in terms of collaboration and partnerships. I want to know from each of you, from your different perspectives, what are some of the innovations that have been working in collaborations across government to research, or industry to research, or industry to government? Bernd, I'd like to start with you.
Okay, maybe to start with my own experience. So we just discussed about those breakthroughs we have in photovoltaics, for example, that this is starting from a very small, from a niche market to being now one, I think, the fastest growing technology in renewables energy in the world. So this always was only possible by scaling and innovation from laboratories to industry in parallel. I think the phase now with the chemical industry, I think it's a great place to be there also as a scientist, because many developments, they go bottom up, but a lot is going top down. And that's an example for us, what we have an international project with South Africa working on green aviation fuels, where we found out that suddenly they came to us, we have projects together and looking with our synchrotron, how a catalyst they are using for sustainable aviation fuels, how can it be improved? How does this catalyst really work from a basic understanding, and how we bring all those data together from science, from big research facilities, but also with new synthesis possibilities to look for new materials. And everything, if you can feed it, and this is, I think, the next breakthrough will come maybe by artificial intelligence, if we have the data in the labs, in the companies, but also know what is happening, because we need this high quality information. Then I think we are facing new breakthroughs. And what we need, you said about all the resources what we have, but we need globally the capacity in the dedicated young talents entering this field, because this global transformation needs sunlight, wind, resources, industry, but we also need the brains, the young ones, and also us still.
Not so young.
Experience. The experience.
The experience is the word.
Fantastic, the experience mind. I do want to talk a little bit about, because I want to talk about scaling up later on, because scaling up not just production and facilities and infrastructure, but also scaling up of the workforce. But let's come back to this question first about global partnerships, because there is a partnership between Siemens Energy and BASF. And just under a year ago, BASF secured funding for a proton exchange membrane electrolyzer, or a PEM electrolyzer, which is critical for producing hydrogen. Now, you have a cooperation with Siemens Energy in Ludwigshafen, and I wonder if the both of you, Carla, I'd like to start with you, can talk a little bit about what is innovative about this project.
Yeah, I think, thank you for bringing it up, because it's exactly part of our strategy. So the first phase is really to explore new technologies. It's a demonstrator project, so that means we can learn and understand how the technology is working in our production site. And of course, working together also means learning together. And this is one part. When I think about collaboration, this means we have to really look into the whole what we call value chains. It starts with partners on the technology field, but it also goes all along to our customers, because chemistry provides one part of the solution, or maybe many companies provide the intermediates, the raw materials for the final end product that we all as consumers buy. And so it only happens, and if we do it really together, starting from the raw material supply, starting from hydrogen production with renewable energy at the beginning, up to partnerships with our customers to really make these solutions also available to the market, but at a cost that the end consumer also pays. And for that, we need all the bright ideas. And that's why collaboration with academia across the world is so important, in order to have this dialogue and get the ideas and then see whether we can translate it into, at the end, economically viable solutions.
I really love that you talk about learning together. Bernd, if you wanted
to. I just would like to step in on this example, and I think one can explain it maybe a bit. In these electrolyzers, there are still a lot of precious metals used. So for like platinum, where for the really huge scale up, what we need, other new materials would be important. There's a membrane which is based on fluorine-based chemistry, which has advantages, but if you know about fluorine chemicals, they are called chemicals in German say for Ewigkeit. They last forever. Maybe we need technologies how to recycle them, how to bring them back into the resource circle, and that's again a project which is needed for the green ammonia in Chile.
True.
I want to talk about the circular economy in Chile in just a second, but I do want to come back to Siemens Energy to talk about this collaboration here.
Yeah, I think that's a very good example of a case where we're actually learning together to see what are the ways that we can produce the hydrogen more efficiently in a chemical industry. And I think it's very relevant if you look at the overall objectives and targets and what we're aiming to achieve. We also have another project where we've focused on the brownfield operations and seeing what we can do to make that more efficient. And as a comparison, if you look at the 1 carbon ton and the cost of what it takes to take it out from the process, the brownfield operations, of course, are the most easiest ones. There are other areas where we have existing solutions of how we can improve efficiencies and so forth. When you then start going into the other parts of the solution, you go into carbon capture, which is also one of the areas in chemical industry which I think has a lot of potential. But already at that point in time, you are into technologies that cost 3 times more than the efficiency elements. So On the efficiency side, if you're focusing on that one, that's more economical to produce capabilities and solutions that work in that particular area. When you go all the way to the solution that you need to go to, i.e. either full electrification or then using hydrogen in the process, you're with the solutions where the cost of capturing a CO2 ton is 10 times higher than what it was with these traditional technologies. And of course, that's not sustainable. That's something that we need to be able to bring down, and that's where the innovation and co-working and learning that needs to happen. We have quite a few good projects, but also then when you're next going into Chile, one of the projects we also discussed was the project at Haruoni in Patagonia, where we together with the both then and public sectors from Germany and then also from Chile, plus then number of different other actors from the private side, developed a first in its form a factory that's producing e-fuels. And again, that's one big part of the transition that can happen in a country like Chile.
Thank you so much. I'd like to come to you with a different question, but I also want to give you the opportunity to respond.
No. I mean, it's a great project, and it has ramped up much faster and better than any of us ever thought. So we're very happy with it. But going back to the attracting young talent and everything, I think that's of course something that's required. But young talent and workforces are very different from country to country. Here in Germany, of course, innovation and science and everything's very developed. With the Haruoni project, we realized that we do not have the workforce or the talents and the skills that we need to hold these kind of projects in the medium or long term. That's why we have been teaming with some universities here in Germany, especially the TU Freiburg, for example, and with companies like VNG and HIF and others, German and French and whatever, in order to develop not only a curriculum for technical workers, but also modules in technical high schools, and to train the trainers also in skills that are specific to these new industries. So as we were commenting before, in Chile we do have engineers, civil engineers, industrial engineers, and everything else. But for example, we do not have enough qualified welders for maintaining plants. So we're trying to bridge that gap with cooperation agreements with especially many technical universities here in Germany, and I hope somewhere else, but I'm doing that here, among other things.
Yes, please, Carlos.
Yeah, just to build on this, I think the challenges are different in the different regions, but even when you look into the chemical education at university, so I'm really always thrilled if colleagues are just doing something. And for example, Professor Holger Rückdeschel in Bayreuth at the University of Bayreuth, he just launched a digitalization and sustainability master in material science. And I think this is the path forward. We don't have to wait. We just can start to do it, and it's sent to the needs of the different countries, of the different industries.
Let's stick with this idea now of scaling up, because we're talking about scaling up the workforce, but there are also other issues when it comes to scaling up. Yesterday, there were pitch sessions that happened, and there were 10 pitches from startups that sort of fit roughly into what we would call the chemical industry. The feedback that a lot of them heard was, this is great. The work you're doing here is fantastic, but it's not big enough. Or, this is fantastic, you're looking at one process, and it's important that you're looking at this one process, but this is one process in a row of 20 processes. And it's good to address each part, but again, we need to go bigger, we need to scale it up. And I want to ask the four of you, what do you see, other than talent, what do you see as the most significant barriers to scaling renewable technologies and sustainable practices across the global chemical industry? I'd like to start with you, Juha Pankakoski.
Certainly. And of course, like discussed earlier, there are a lot of good technologies around and quite a few ones that already have been developed. For instance, to use as one example, we talked about the heat capture and turning that into other energy forms. There are ways in which you can do that at a much lower temperatures than what we do today, but those are once more things that haven't been scaled up. But when you look at first of all the investments required to start operating one of these technologies, you're already talking about substantial investments. So setting up a pilot project plant, for instance, with BASF, is not a question of tens of millions. It goes in the magnitude of hundreds of millions. And at that point in time, you already start seeing some sort of challenges for this magnitude. So it's not just basically being able to develop the technology, but being able to find and secure the funding to be able to test it and pilot in a large scale. And then, of course, when you're going into the new areas, then there's very little first mover advantage in this particular area, which is again a challenge compared to quite a few of the other innovations. So there isn't a tangible benefit of being first in doing many of these things. At the same time, for all the energy that you're producing, you always need someone in return to buy it. You need a customer for whatever you're producing. And there's a lot of fluctuation with the new technologies, a lot of uncertainties associated to the cost of energy being developed. So just on a commercial market alone, you won't see these technologies scaling up very fast. That's why you need different sort of mechanisms to make certain that not just the initial investment, but also the demand for the renewable energies is secured.
Thank you so much.
I think these are very good words. But what I like with all what you said with the startups, with the possibility, the nice thing with the transformation is also that there are a lot of new companies coming up. There are business opportunities, but also for the scientists in our laboratories, also there are possibilities to make a startup still, because you are in a very new field. Certainly many will fail, there are risks, but there are also like your big companies which can take over then some of the developments, and so I would say it should really stimulate people to go and young people to go into these fields, because there's still so much to be done.
Yeah, and I think, of course, to be able to support that, we do have, for instance, the ventures programs that we've been running with Siemens Energy for quite a while, and we have been participating in different sort of consortiums to build these instruments and mechanisms. But I think even more is required, and a bit more of a coordinated, consorted effort, perhaps also from the European community perspective here in Europe.
I do want to talk about sort of policy frameworks in a second, but I want to give.
Yeah, maybe I just
Please.
want to talk about one example. What we are working closely together is with a startup company in South Africa, and there we learn also a lot. And I think this will happen also with Chile when we hopefully have even closer ties. Is that there are different markets and different ideas are coming. So we have a project on green cooking gas there to use it within Africa, and there's our companies where we work together which want to use CO2 from the atmosphere, green hydrogen, but develop, let's say, gas bottles, but they need to be lightweight to be transported because there's no pipe structure, what we have here. And there's a completely different thinking, but there also you need different chemistry, different materials, and this is highly beneficial also for our own, what we learn, and how to do things different and in a better way by global cooperation.
Thank you, Carla.
Yeah, and building on this, I think when you look at the startup, I asked 3 questions. The first is the problem that the startup tackles, is it relevant? And many cases you can make a tick on that. The second is it scalable? And there I really learned a lot, Bernd, from the photovoltaics team in your institute, that you have to think to make a technology big already from the very beginning. Yeah, I think your colleague called it intrinsic scalability. Mm-hmm. So to really think about how you make it scalable at the very beginning, already maybe sometimes in fundamental research. And then you can come to the third point, is it valuable? Can you earn money with that? Mm. And then you get really a comprehensive approach. And I think for me, this is really important that you think the economic part and the scale up part already from the very beginning.
Mm-hmm. I want to move now. We've talked about Chile a few times, and I want to ask specifically now, Ambassador, about the memorandum of understanding that Germany and Chile has. They've had a partnership since 2013, and when Chancellor Scholz was in Chile in January of last year, of 2023, he renewed that MOU and then elaborated upon it further between the BMWK and the Chilean Ministry of Mining. It's got a great name. It's called the German-Chilean Partnership for Mining, Raw Materials and Circular Economy. And I want to ask a little bit, first of all, what's behind that name? And what is it about the partnership that is so innovative?
Well, I just want to let you know that we have many partnerships with Germany. We've been working with this country since 2013, and our country has instated a political energy agenda since 2015 that has navigated very well through different governments, which is something that's not very usual, so we're very happy with it. Each government has made it more profound and more initiatives and everything, so that's very good. Talking about this particular memorandum of understanding, it has been the AHK, the German-Chilean Chamber of Commerce, that has been in charge of coordinating it, and it has worked very well because mainly it has to do with private partnerships in order to develop eco-mining in Chile. And forums we're making. Actually, today is the first forum that was agreed upon after this memorandum of understanding was modernized in 2023. So it's currently, I don't know, we have different. It's currently going now. We have 4 hours difference, and it has translated very well. The AHK has made a very, very good job in planning and implementing activities that go in the richtige Richtung.
Fantastic.
And there's some very interesting projects that I just want to let you know. There's a water recovery through chemical treatments, which is done with the Reomax DR 1050, which is a chemical produced by BASF. And it's used in mining tailings, it produces higher density and higher sedimentation rate. So it allows to recover almost 7% more water in the treatment of ore, which is very, very good. And it has translated. I mean, this is not only goodwill for the company. It increases production like 5% per day because of this implementation, and an additional $100 million a year. So for companies, it's a good. And it's good to showcase that for companies investing in this kind of solutions it's gaining also. It's not only the environment, it's not only the Paris Agreement goals. It's also for them very, very relevant. We also have a zero-emission transport with RV Technology International, which are building conveyor belts to transport ore from one point where it's extracted to where it's treated in a very low carbon emission mode. So that's also collaborating to the environmental goals. And we also have a photovoltaic plant, which is of a Chilean company, actually. And also, it's a Chilean initiative, and these 3 have been they have worked very well, and they have been implemented in the framework of this MOU that we signed with Germany.
Fantastic.
So it's something concrete. It's something that brings, lets us reach our goals as a country, as a society in green energy, but also it's good for companies, which is something that is not showcased sufficiently, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm. I want to come back to this now. We have just a few minutes before questions. Mm-hmm. I'll get to you in just a second. We have just a couple minutes before that, which is not enough time to talk about. We've been sort of skirting the issue of money the whole time. Mm-hmm. And oftentimes money comes along with policy frameworks and how things are set up so that it works for industry. Mm-hmm. I think I can guess that current policies that are in place aren't enough. And what do you need? What do we need? Not you. What do we need in terms of regulatory measures that can help make sure that industry adopts renewable solutions? I'd love to ask you first.
Yes. Well, going back to the very, very first comments, I think the elephant is so big that basically you have to eat it in pieces. So it's the challenge is so massive that if you just faced on that one, start thinking on what needs to be done, you don't get anywhere. But we need to chew fast, otherwise the elephant will mature too quickly in the process. There's a lot that can be done, for instance, in Europe in harmonizing both the regulations and also then the subsidy mechanisms. I think we could start from there. That's closest to home. I think if you compare that to a couple of the other markets, if you look at, for instance, the Inflation React in the US that has been in place, I think there's good benchmarks what we can do if we're a bit more uniform. We have carbon capture mechanisms ourselves and rules and guidelines on how companies are expected to fund the green transition. I think we could be a bit sharper on how we use those funds, both in the European Innovation Fund as well as then funding the new manufacturing technologies for green energy. I think there's a lot that we can do, but we would just need to be a bit more homogeneous. I think we're spreading ourselves a bit too thin at this point in time when you look at investments and opportunities that we're grasping.
All right, spreading ourselves a little bit too thin.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, and for me, it's more to have a reliable set of regulations that gives a ground for planning, so that you don't have to do all this to follow all the different ways that regulation might go. I mean, as a global company, we focus on global solutions, of course, always in the context of the regional or the country environment. And I think in general, also beyond this high level or high view, helicopter view, it's more important to have incentives rather than talking about to not be able to, or compared to restrictions, let's put it this way. Yeah? It's more about incentives, that markets can be developed, that products can be developed for these solutions, rather than having a too strict framework on what we can do and what we can't do. So incentives are key for me, and that's plannable and reliable.
Mm-hmm. Maybe someone who will ask a question later about what exactly you mean by reliable, but I want to make sure we have a chance to hear from our other two panelists before we open the floor to questions.
Maybe just a very small point, because you were addressing these big investments, what we need, but also from a scientific perspective and for looking on corporations, I think it's also good if we have actions and if they are strategically planned, and that they are also backed up, for example, by research projects, international one, which is quite helpful if we say we do this and then we put research between the countries together with the partnerships, because this helps us to build up the capacity on both sides, and that's sometimes a bit more scattered, I would say. Then there's an initiative there, and there's a big industry initiative. On the other hand, there's a scientific initiative which is maybe on a different topic, and this could be brought together in a framework which would help you for getting the right talent. So this would help us and also give us a critical mass in bringing research, industry, and global corporations together.
Thanks so much, Bernd.
I think that also more than, I mean, not only adequate financing, and but also we need from the EU perspective adequate financing and the reform of the development banks. But from a non-EU government's perspective, of course, we need to have the adequate framework, law framework, in order to materialize those investments with sufficient security for companies that invest in our countries, and also adequate standards, hopefully globalized, so that what we do in one part of the world, it's equally, I mean, we understand the same thing about processes and regulations and everything else. We need coordination. One very good example of coordination, that's not exactly what we're talking about, but it's a very good example of coordination, is the Climate Club. I don't know if you have heard about it, okay, that Germany and Chile are co-chairing right now. And one of the first measures, and it will be launched in the next COP29, is a platform of all the financing available across the world that countries can try to acquire through this platform, and which many times it goes to waste because nobody knows that they exist. So, and that's something and that has meant, that's the result of the coordination of like 25 countries from the north and the south, I mean, from all over the world. And it's very interesting because even countries that are not part of the Climate Club can try to, acquire some of this financing for decarbonization in their own countries and their own industries. And it's very, very interesting. I think I would recommend you to be on the lookout for the launching of this platform that will be so soon.
Thank you so much for bringing this up. So COP29, it begins on Monday.
Yeah.
So also if you're joining us online and you heard something, yes, please check out the Climate Club. But right now I want to address questions in the audience. We have a question right here. If we can get a microphone, please stand up, say your name if you have an affiliation. Ask your question, and if it's to the panel or if it's to a specific person.
All right, so my name is Melania Kostra. I'm a PhD student at Uppsala University. I work in the material sciences. I hear from your discussion that we have one planet for all of us, and I was really happy to hear also that we need to move away from extractivism and towards circular economy. And then I have kind of 3 questions open.
Maybe let's do one question.
They are clumped together. It's a bundle. Okay, so how do you promote business models with the circular economy mindset? What activities do you implement in the existing businesses that have this circular economy mindset? And is it actually possible in an economic system as it is right now? Because my understanding is, and why I'm saying that is my impression is that most business models are based on continuous extraction of resources and with an assumption that we have more than one planet.
All right, so this deals with, thank you so much for your question. This deals with how do we promote business models that deal with the circular economy? How can we implement activities that really look at circular economy? And is it possible in the economic system that we have right now to do that? It's a big question.
Governments do have a very relevant role in that because you can incentivize some kind of business models or desensitize that. And for example, in Chile, as I told you, we do not want to repeat our mistakes from the past. And of course, in tenders, in public tenders, we do introduce requirements that make companies have to comply with our decarbonization goals, with our added value goals, training of our workforce and everything else. So I think governments do have a very important role in order directing or signaling the path we want to travel, we want to walk on. So,
Great. Please, Carla.
Yeah, and to build on this, I think the CO2 target, the net zero 2050, is more or less a given. I think there nobody is. It's only the question: can you expedite and can you achieve it earlier? But I think it's also a topic of setting targets. So for BASF, we have currently around 5 billion euro sales with what we call loop solutions. So products that are building on renewable or recycled resources, raw materials. And we want to double this until 2030. So not only we have these targets, also our customers have these targets. And so I think it's one way to really focus and to also commit to these targets.
Thank you so much. If you have a response, yes, I know we also have other questions from the audience.
Sure, just very quickly. First of all, I think if you look at Siemens Energy and the emphasis that we put on sustainability and sustainable energy sources, it is quite significant. We invest annually a bit more than 1 billion in research and development for newer, better technologies, and a big part of that one goes into the energy transition, into renewables. If you look at the products that we're producing, they are designed so they are renewable, they are refurbishable, and they have a long established life. So we're not talking about consumable products when we're talking about the offering that we have in place. So really there is a high emphasis on making certain that we maintain and help our customers to maintain the product life cycle as long as possible. So it is in the center of the activities that we do.
That's fantastic. I'd like to have the microphone here for a question. The person in the back row, yes, please stand up. The microphone's coming your way. State your name, if you have an affiliation, and your question. And we have only 6 minutes left, so.
Okay. I'm Alex Strube from Research Center Jülich. Before you mentioned the cost of the energy change in something like 500 billion euros. What is the cost of not doing it?
Infinite.
All right, Juha, what is the cost of not doing the energy transition?
There isn't, of course, an option of not doing it, but it's a question of how do we do it. I think it's not a question of having a choice, but it's more how do you execute it. And I think that's still a topic that we need to address. Because I think just recognizing the fact that this is something that needs to be done doesn't mean that it will be done. And of course, we see it very clearly at this point when we talk about the different ways in which you can get there. There are either the easy ways that don't get us all the way through, but just a couple of inches, couple of steps that direction. In order for us to make the transition, we need to then and put the act together, start investing in things that we know are already in there, either in existence or being scaled up, and start then making concrete actions to get there. I think, and again, very good question, and as I said, we never address the fact that is this something that needs to be done or not? It is and must.
Absolutely, thank you. And thank you so much for that question. Thank you for being such a good sport, Juha. We have another question here from the audience.
Thank you very much. My name is Milad, and I'm a postdoc researcher in SPCI University in Paris. Well, yesterday I pitched about carbon capture from the ocean. First of all, I would love to accept any investment you might have. My question is that I've been to so many startup circles talking about the solutions for saving the planet. And we all know when we talk about healthcare, many Western countries are in net loss when they want to invest because it saves lives. In those startup circles, they ask me how much money you're going to make us at the end. Of course, they don't ask it so crude like this, but that's the gist of it. I would like to know what are the actual tangible steps you are taking in your respective departments to just have a more life-saving centric view rather than money-centric view. Actual, tangible ones. Thank you.
Thank you so much for the question. Bernd, let's start with tangible steps.
It's not so easy to answer, but I think it's, if you discuss in Helmholtz and with international colleagues, it's quite clear. If you look what happens with climate and all the issues, what we do, it also has a big impact on health. So it will doing many things we need to do for new chemicals, for better materials, for a sustainable green transformation will also affect this. And this is you can answer it. You said there's money around. The question is how do we get it, and certainly how do the startups, the new companies, the new ideas also benefit from it.
Please, Carla.
Yeah, and I mean, it's not about maybe the outcome as such, but it's also to think about safe and sustainable by design already at the very beginning, yeah, and to take this as a starting point. This limits certain solutions, but I think it's important to start with this. And we have also the discussion around what does it mean, for example, for research. But always when you think about bringing a product to the market, better think about this at the very beginning. And this is a paradigm change, yeah, compared to how we do research since decades. Yeah.
And again, I think governments have a lot to do in this, and I think it can be done. For example, we are a very small country, very, very far away from everywhere, but our current government, and actually it's been a line that has been transferred by different governments, but our current government has three main challenges that it has made the icon. And it's, of course, environmental. I mean, we have a net zero goal of 2050, but we're working for 2030 with the German government and the Climate Club regarding the Paris Agreement goals. And we're also decarbonized many of our industries much faster than we ever thought. I mean, once you set a goal and you start working toward that goal, it does work. I mean, maybe sometimes when they're too ambitious, people are not, they do not assume that kind of goals because they're afraid that they won't be able to comply, but it is. And also we have something that, for example, gender equality. It has worked in many of our industries. We try that at least 30 to 40% of students in science and training programs, everything, are women. And it does work too. And for example, for us, it's very strange. Now we have co-ed directories and panels and everything. It is very strange for us when we come sometimes here to Germany and we go to all men's panels. It's or all men cabinet members or all men whatever. I mean, it does work, and it kind of ingrains in the population and in the government and the decision makers. So I think we do have a very relevant growth from the political point of view. Conviction, goals and conviction, and go.
Absolutely. I know I saw other hands. I'm really sorry. Everyone can see. I'm so sorry that we aren't going to be able to get to your question. Please do accept my apology. I think that there might be time afterwards to connect with speakers if you want, but right now, since the numbers up on that screen have turned red, panelists, it means that our discussion is coming to a close. But before we do, we've talked about a lot today. We've talked about scaling up. We've talked about the labor force. We've talked about collaboration. We've talked about financing. We've talked about regulatory frameworks. In these last 40 seconds, what walls do we need to break down most urgently to meet CO2 reduction targets while we can still meet this growing demand that we have? Ambassador, I'd like to start with you.
Wow. I think I had something else thought, but I think now that we've been talking and what we talked, when I just said, I think to set goals and pursue those goals with conviction is super relevant. Obviously, everything else will fall in place if we do that first.
Set goals and conviction. Juha Pankakowski.
Yeah, I think it's very much in the same lines. I think we have quite a big part of the technologies. We have the means, we have the way. We just need to basically settle on the goal and start executing on it instead of waiting around for someone to do something.
Fantastic. Carla Seidel.
When I was a student, the wall was falling, and I still remember Ronald Reagan saying, "Dear Mr. Gorbachev, please tear down this wall." So for me, it's tearing down the walls globally and work together. There's only one way. Let's do this.
Absolutely. Bernd Resch, final word.
Just do it.
Just do it. Fantastic. Let's have a round of applause, ladies and gentlemen. Bernd Resch, Carla Seidel, Juha Pankakowski, Magdalena Atria. Thank you so much.